And there we go. Okay. So today's webinar is on emerging invasive species, and it is part of the Community Science Long Island webinar series, which is a monthly educational series that highlights local participatory science opportunities. And importantly, it shows how volunteers can get involved and how your involvement can make a difference in conservation, environmental management, and research. This year's series is entirely focused on invasive species. This was thanks to input we received from attendees from last year's Community Science Long Island. And last year, we also, for the first time, had both in-person and webinar events, and we're repeating that again this year. So we've already had webinars and events on Phragmites and water chestnut. So if you missed those, you can access them in the Community Science LR web page, which I'll put in the chat shortly. So this webinar is, as of a couple seconds ago, being recorded, and you can access it there as well. Before I hand it over, I want to shout out that we're also having an in-person event this Saturday at Coindre Hall Park in Huntington. It's going to be from 10 to 11:30. It's going to be great. It's going to be a nature walk and an invasive species poll. So please join us. I'll put the registration link in the chat at the end of this webinar as well. And like I said, this is being recorded. You are all muted, but if at any point you have a question for our speakers, please feel free to drop it either in the chat or in the Q&A box below your screen. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our speakers today. Our speakers are Cassidy Robinson. She is the Conservation Area Manager for the Long Island Invasive Species Management Area, or LISMA. She received her bachelor's in environmental science from Binghamton University in 2019 and has since worked across New York managing invasive species, educating communities, and stewarding land. Abby B. Marino is the program manager for the Long Island Invasive Species Management Area. She received her bachelor's in environmental science from Cornell University. And in addition to her work with LISMA, she is currently pursuing a master's degree in energy and environmental management at the University of Connecticut. So without further ado, ladies, the stage is yours.
Thanks, Jimena. All right, I'll share my screen. All right. Thanks for coming. Today we're going to be talking about emerging invasive species. I'm Cassidy Robinson, joined by Abby Marino, and we're with the Long Island Invasive Species Management Area. So today we'll be going over what is LISMA, giving an intro to invasives, what defines an invasive species, talking about 10 priority invasive species that will teach you how to identify. We'll go over how to report findings and where you might want to look for these species by participating through our Invasive Species Spotters program, how to get ready for the field and be safe, and some resources that might help you along the way.
All right, I'll get started on talking about LISMA. What is LISMA? Next slide. Right, so LISMA, or the Long Island Invasive Species Management Area, is a group of organizations working together to reduce the threat of invasive species and protect local ecosystems in New York City and on Long Island. So we span this whole area from Staten Island, Brooklyn, and Queens, all the way out through Nassau and Suffolk County, even some islands in there like Fisher's Island. And our funding for LISMA is provided by the New York Environmental Protection Fund as administered by the Department of Environmental Conservation. We're also hosted by the Long Island Native Plant Initiative, and our office is in Brentwood. Next slide. Yeah, so the Long Island Invasive Species Management Area is one of 8 partnerships for regional invasive species management that cover all of New York State. So that's some context where New York is unique in the fact that there are all these organizations that collaborate together, coordinate invasive species management, and provide education to cover all of New York. So we're one small part of a bigger system that helps keep us connected. Next slide. So we'll do more definitions of invasive species in a few slides, but for your knowledge, if you're not familiar, we define it as invasive species as a non-native species that causes some kind of harm to the environment, economy, or human health. And we have over 700 invasive species that are in the region or nearing the region, and that's a lot. With all those impacts that invasive species bring, and because that definition is focused on that negative impact, it's really easy to focus on the negative, right? But here at LISMA, we tend to have a focus on what we protect, and today you're helping us do just that. Next slide. Long Island is one of the most biodiverse regions in New York State, from its beaches to upland forests to wetlands and remnant plains, maritime shrubland, rare ecosystems like coastal plain ponds. That ecological diversity, even if it's fragmented sometimes by roads and communities, translates to a lot of biodiversity. We have a lot to be proud of and a lot to protect from the threat of invasive species. Next slide. Now, with all that biodiversity and with all of the invasive plant and animal species that we have here, where do you begin? Well, we need to prioritize in two ways, and mainly by prioritizing by species and prioritizing by site, so invasive species and conservation area. Next slide. We'll start off with the sites. We have 12 invasive species prevention zones, which are large parcels of land that with relatively few invasive species compared to their surroundings, and we want to keep them that way. So you might recognize some favorite parks here. Those ISPZs are in purple. And surrounded by that or grouped into that are ecologically similar areas that we call management complexes. And that's just a way of grouping them together and looking beyond those borders of individual properties to look for emerging species that might be of interest. These areas have high biodiversity, including rare ecological communities and rare species within them. Next slide. So that's prioritizing by site, but more in this relevant to this presentation is prioritizing by species. So this graph called the invasion curve, if you've seen our presentations, we've probably stuck this in here before. This invasion curve illustrates the importance of finding and managing new infestations before they spread and become well established, and when that control is still feasible. So when an invasive species arrives, this graph shows that over time, left to right, uh, that the area the species occupies increases. And as that happens, the cost of controlling it also increases. There's more plants, there's more to control. So ideally, we want to be at the low end of this curve in that green region where we're finding and managing new infestations before they spread and become widely established. Next slide. And this program in particular is focused on emerging invasive species, those that are new to the region and not yet established. So we want your help in logging those observations of these species, and that helps us better understand their distribution and respond to manage them. So for context, every year we follow up on several emerging invasive species observations, whether input through iNaturalist or as we'll talk about IMAP Invasives, from users like you. So this data you enter in this program directly impacts the work that we do. So that brings us to the tier ranking list that helps us understand a little bit more of what we mean by emerging invasive species. This list is a categorized list of invasive species across LISMA and New York to help inform management and prioritize. And it puts it in categories based on their impact and their distribution, what it's doing and how much of it there is. So the emerging invasive species that you're here to learn about, we consider in tiers 1 and 2. Tier 1 are ones that are not yet found in the Lisbon region, and these are species we're keeping a watchful eye for and keep on our radar. And Tier 2 species are known to be found in our region, but they have low enough abundance that eradicating them might be possible, might be feasible. Other higher tier species like tiers 3 and 4 are more widespread, and these might include the species that you're more familiar with when you think of invasive species, like knotweed, Phragmites, spotted lanternfly, tree of heaven, and many, many more. So this program is trying to get ahead of that curve. Instead of focusing on widespread species, it's focusing on species that are less abundant, which kind of makes it like a scavenger hunt to try to find them. Next slide. And there is a link to the tier ranking list if you want to explore that yourself. It's a really cool table, and you could see not only see us and Lisma there, see how we rank things, but also how other prisms across New York State rank them. We have different ways of thinking about them. So take a moment if you want to save this tab. It's a very cool resource. And I'll pass it off to Cassidy to continue the presentation.
Great. So now we can get into really what defines an invasive species and compare that definition to some others. So native species, you may know, are those that have developed over hundreds or thousands of years in a particular region or ecosystem, such as an oak tree. This is a species that's been here a really long time, and it's very interconnected with the food web and the ecosystem and has a lot of symbiotic relationships. For example, insects that depend on that plant that could not feed on an invasive or a non-native plant, for example. For non-native species, those are species that are introduced to a new place where they're not previously found, and they may have a beneficial or neutral impact, not necessarily negative, and they may even be good. So this might include things like citrus that come from another area and will use in an agricultural setting, but it's not exactly spreading to the nearest forest. It's kind of staying put in a cultivated environment. And invasive species are non-native species that do harm the environment, economy, or human health, and sometimes all three. So just to clarify that before we get a little bit more into it. They spread through a variety of ways, most of which are through human activity. So whether this is landscape and aquarium dumping, invasive seeds sticking to boots or tire treads, equipment, maybe camping gear, lawnmowers, transporting firewood can harbor invasive pests. If you're going upstate or out of state for the weekend, they say to buy local firewood so we don't transport invasive species. Directly planting invasive species. A lot of our horticultural plants that we love are so hardy for a lot of the same reasons that make them invasive. You know, they're very adaptable, very resistant to insects, things like that. And also recreational activities, whether it's hunting or fishing, sometimes that can lead to the spread of invasive species as well. And invasive species have a variety of impacts on the ecosystems that they grow in. It will increase competition with native species for natural resources, result in habitat loss. Invasive plants and animals will degrade and diminish functional habitat space and quality. They may cause economic damage, impeding recreation, damaging agriculture, and becoming really costly for landowners. And decreasing resilience, weakening ecosystem resilience in forests, grasslands, wetlands, lakes, all sorts of habitats. And this matters because invasive species touch nearly every aspect of our world and are one of the greatest threats to New York's biodiversity, agriculture, and outdoor recreation. So if you like spending time outside, going for walks, even having a glass of wine or local crops every now and then. So that will be impacted by invasive species. And today we'll be talking about invasive species spotters. This is how we can take action against the threat of invasive species. We're asking the community to come together to help us locate priority invasive plants and report them. So these volunteers will work independently and receive guidance from our staff, learn to identify the highest priority invasive plants in the region, scout trails and parks for priority species, and report presence and absence on the Survey 123 app. And the goal is to help discover emerging infestations for LISMA so that we can investigate and manage them while they're still small populations. So now we'll get into some of the priority species and also how to approach plant identification if you're not already familiar. So just a few plant growth forms. You probably already know these, but just to put some terms out there, herbaceous plants are grasses or flowers that don't have woody stems. Shrubs are woody, often having multiple stems, up to 30 feet, but often more like 7 feet. Trees are, of course, woody, have one or a few larger trunks, and can be often more than 13 feet high. And vines can be woody or herbaceous and climb on other plants and the ground for support. And herbaceous plants specifically have a few different life strategies. So they can be annual, living for 1 year, reproducing by seed, maybe self-seeding. Biennial plants living for 2 years and reproducing in their second year. and perennial that live multiple years and invest energy into a perennial root system. And these strategies will impact how we manage them, and it can also clue us in as to like when to best manage them. If they're annual, we want to make sure they don't set seed and things like that. And this only applies to herbaceous plants, not woody plants. Woody plants are always perennial. Another clue for identifying plants is leaf shape, whether that's ovate, kind of oval, cordate, or heart-shaped, elliptical, or kind of oval, lanceolate, lance-shaped, linear, just like a line, and oblong, kind of like another oval shape. So we'll look for different things like leaf shape, as well as leaf arrangement and branch arrangement. Plants can either be alternate or opposite in the way their leaves and branches are arranged. So alternate is when they're kind of staggered along a stem, and opposite is more like symmetrical along a stem. They're directly opposite from one another. And you can also have whorled plants, which kind of go in a circle around the stem. And we'll also pay attention to leaf margins, or what the edges of the leaves look like. An entire margin has no serrations. Dentate has kind of teeth. Double dentate, double teeth. Lobed, kind of like an oak leaf, kind of different, maybe rounded dents in the leaf, or serrated, spiky like a steak knife edge. So now we'll get into some of the plants. These are our top 10 emerging species for this year. And as part of Invasive Species Spotters, we want you all to look out for these, and if you see them, to report them. So starting with small carpet grass, this is a low-growing, sprawling annual grass of wet areas. It has bright green leaves that clasp the stem or go partway around the stem that are 1 to 3 inches long with sparse hairs on the leaf margin. They have greenish to purple inflorescence in late summer, and they spread vegetatively, but mostly by seed. And since they're an annual plant, they can be really effectively suppressed and managed by removing it or mowing it before it sets seed. And over time will deplete the seed bank. This is a very high priority emerging invasive species targeted for eradication. There are only about 2 sites of this plant on Long Island. And it thrives on disturbance. It's a prolific seeder, it makes a lot of seeds, and it can form these kind of dense monocultures. And one of the populations on Long Island directly threatens rare plants. It grows in close proximity to a lot of rare plants. So that's definitely a very high management priority for us. And it's ongoing as well. Next is Italian arum, also known as orange candleflower. This is a plant with arrow-shaped leaves and white veins. It has a central spadix flower surrounded by a hooded spathe that appears in April to May. If you're familiar with peace lily, it's kind of a similar type flower to that houseplant. And it has also clusters of orange berries that will form in summer and remain throughout August. This plant is in the horticultural trade, as many of the plants we may discuss today are. So if you see it, don't buy it. And it forms dense ground covers and kind of prefers like areas near water or woodlands. And it will shade out other plants. It's also toxic to the touch or to ingest, so keep away from it. Don't touch it if you think you found it, and be sure to keep kids and pets away too. Next is hardy kiwi. This is a deciduous woody vine, meaning it loses its leaves in the winter, and it grows up to 20 feet per year. So it's really hardy and vigorous. It has fragrant white flowers with purple anthers that bloom in the middle of summer, and produces green grape-sized fruits that are much like kiwis, and they have a lot of seeds. It is really good at smothering plants and creating these vinelands. And you can also identify it by its red petioles or leaf stems, and also kind of a rounded, scalloped margin on the, a serration on the edge of the leaf. And this is an example of one of those vinelands that's all hardy kiwi covering a bunch of other plants. You should be seeing different trees and shrubs under there, but it's just kind of a blanket of kiwi. And so we want to detect this before it gets to this point. This population, thankfully, is being managed by one of our partners and should not be this size anymore. But definitely want to prevent that in the future. Next is air potato. Or invasive yam. This is a tuberous perennial vine that will grow up to 11 feet or more. Its leaves are most often cordate or heart-shaped, with long petioles. So again, the petioles are the stems attaching the leaf to the stem. And it produces bulbils at the leaf axils where the leaves meet the stem. And those bulbils will help the plant spread. And they can also spread by water. So if they grow these bulbils and drop off the plant, especially if it's near water, that could spread a really far distance, establish a new population. And these underground tubers can also grow 2 to 3 feet long. So that's a really large root and something that's really hard to manage. And this vine is really good at smothering other plants as well. Next is Holly osmanthus. This is an evergreen shrub or small tree with opposite leathery dark to light green leaves. And the leaves are either entire with no serrations or have 1 to 4 sets of spines. That looks a little bit more familiar like another holly that you might have seen. And the leaves may also be variegated, having white spots on them, a combination of white and green. And this plant's really highly adaptable. So tolerant of a wide range of light conditions, soil conditions, really hardy. And here you can see the 2 different leaf morphologies where they're entire on the left and there's no serrations, and on the right they have the 1 to 4 sets of spines. That looks a little bit more like traditional holly. And you might be wondering how to distinguish this from other hollies. We have an American holly, and there's also other ornamental hollies that may not necessarily be invasive. And so the distinguishing factor for Holly osmanthus is the opposite leaves. So you can see those leaves are on the right are symmetrical, or actually both pictures, symmetrically arranged on the stem. So if you see something that looks like a holly and the leaves are opposite one another on the branch, that is most likely Holly osmanthus.
All right. So we've got 5 more to finish you off, and there's also going to be a lot of help references. So if this is moving quickly, we have a lot of resources to reference these species. So our next one is Juliana's barberry. And you might be familiar with this species' cousin, red barberry or Japanese barberry. This one's a little bit different, but definitely has some similarities. It's an evergreen shrub with whorls of serrated, leathery leaves. And the leaves are longer than the rounded red barberry leaves that you might be familiar with. The stems have 3 spines at each node. So the node is kind of where there's a little bit of a joint in the plant. And it has bright yellow flowers early in the spring, that with berries that persist into the fall. This is sometimes called wintergreen barberry because you'll see the species with leaves into the winter. Also quite early for flowering. It's early in the spring where you're going to notice the flowers. So this makes a great one to look for any time of year, but especially earlier in the spring when other things aren't blooming as much. Next slide. Our next one is water lettuce, and here's an aquatic plant that's often introduced into ponds from people dumping aquaria. The good news is that this species looks pretty unique, and its name helps. It kind of, to me, definitely looks like a head of lettuce that might be floating on the water. It's a free-floating plant, which is interesting. It just kind of has feathery roots that can extend 32 inches below the water, but it's not rooted necessarily to the ground. Sometimes you can see it on muddy shorelines. So can be in the water, but also a little bit on the shore too, and can be a little bit of a small head of leaves. The leaves are thick and ridged and have a dull light green with short velvety hairs. So let us know if you see any of this in your local ponds. Next slide. Sapphire berry. This one we're finding to be more common on Long Island as we learn more about it, so this might be more of an easy one for you to find, in fact. We found it thriving in rich forests on the North Shore, but it could pop up elsewhere. This is a deciduous shrub that's up to 15 feet tall, and it has alternate simple, so meaning like not many leaves from one stem, but simple leaves that are oval shaped and are wider usually near the tip than at the base. The leaves have deeply ridged veins, so it's kind of like somebody etched those veins in there with many tiny hairs that are along the veins on the underside of the leaf. And in that close-up picture, you can kind of see some of those hairs that are sticking up on the leaf. In May to June, there's white 5-petaled flowers that emerge that have many stamens, so it's kind of like a spray of flowers. And it has blue sapphire color berries in the fall that are slightly oblong and pea-sized berries. You can tell why it's called sapphire berry because of those blue berries. But most of the year, it's a little bit less obvious in just showing those leaves. So if you really like identifying plants by leaves, this is a fun challenge for you. Next slide. And we'll finish this off with two wetland plants. So yellow garden loosestrife. This is a special one for this webinar because this plant, yellow garden loosestrife, is at Coinger Hall. So you get a chance to see this one up close and personal if you come with us on Saturday. Maybe you've heard of purple loosestrife, but this is a similar species to look out for. It's a perennial herbaceous plant that also likes to grow in wetlands like purple loosestrife, and it has 5-petaled yellow flowers with a reddish-brown margin on the small leaves around the flower petals, known as sepals. So we'll have a close-up picture in a second. Actually, you can click it now. Of those little, you see there's a little red outline that's just on the edge of those leaves, almost like eyeliner. So that is something that's distinctive from other yellow loosestrifes. There's actually a few things that are called yellow loosestrife, but this specific one, Lysomachia vulgaris, has those little red edges. So don't just go pulling up any yellow loosestrife or yellow plant that you see. What else to say about this? It can be 3 to 6 feet tall with some hairy stems with opposite or whorled lance-shaped leaves. So those leaves can go all the way around the stem. And as I mentioned before, on July 12th, you can come join us in learning more about this species, seeing it up close, and going on that plant walk. Next slide. And our last species here is perennial pepperweed. We only know of it at one site on Long Island, and we'd like to keep it that way. So we'd love your help in monitoring for it. This is an herbaceous plant that regrows from its roots every year, so it's perennial and loves wetlands, but it can also be adaptable to other locations. The leaves at the base have long petioles, and the leaves are serrated and alternate on the stem, so they're more staggered. The stems can be 3 to 8 feet tall, and the leaves tend to decrease in size the higher you go up, so there'd be a smaller leaf towards the top. If you're familiar with the native plant marsh elder, the leaves can look similar in similar texture and in similar habitats. And then finally, it has a dense cluster of white flowers at the tops of the stems. Cool. That's all our species. And we have prepared reference information for these species, a fact sheet that you can use in the field or keep on your phone. And so reference material is definitely available to you. Now, once you find these species, how can you tell us about them? Well, we'll tell you. We'll walk through a few slides describing the steps, and then Cassidy will go over the same steps in a screen share demonstration. So you'll get to hear it twice. Next slide. In this invasive species spotters program, we use a survey on the app called Survey 123 that sends data to IMAP Invasives. And IMAP Invasives is a statewide database that we use to log observations of invasive species. So first, you're going to start by searching for ArcGIS Survey 123 in your app store. And the app is free. You do not need an ArcGIS account. It might prompt you to log in, but make sure you can hit continue without signing in, because for the purpose of this project, you don't need an account. If you have one through work or whatever, you can use your account, but you do not need an account for this program. Next slide. The next step is getting the survey that we're going to use inside the app. So you've downloaded the app, now you need to put a survey into it. So you can scan that QR code or enter that link into your phone, and the link should prompt you to open up the survey inside that Survey 123 app. Now, if you already have an IMAP Invasives account, that's great, but if not, it's time to make one. It's totally free. IMAP Invasives is always free, and it gives you access to upload observations and access lots of data from the IMAP Invasives database. And this is a database, as I previously mentioned, where professionals and the public can share invasive species observations. So yeah, that's the slide we should have had up. Yes, exactly. So you can use that QR code to make a free account with IMAP Invasives. And lastly, from that, you'll want to know what your IMAP Invasives ID number is, your person ID. That's your unique user identifying number that the survey will ask for. And so we'll walk you through how to get that. So that's the setup. Once you have that setup done, you're ready to log an observation. When should you record data? Well, every time you actively or passively search for these invasive species, it's a good time to log some data. Absence data can be very helpful for us to better understand species distribution. So if you're saying, hey, I'm walking in the park, I have these species in the back of my head, I didn't see anything. That's actually can be very helpful information for us to know because we know somebody looked there and they didn't find it. Really valuable. Uh, and make sure you complete the fields for your person ID, name and email address, the IMAP project ID, which is 1674 when it prompts you to do that. Things like the date and time, the state, and clicking simple geographic data collection. But you can skip certain fields like the organization ID, things about treatment applied, because this program can be used for more than what we're using it for. So there's some fields that if you don't have information for it, you can skip it. And we'd be using, is this something you're covering, Cassidy? Simple geographic data collection.
Uh, I can cover it. I think I start on the next slide.
Okay, then I'll finish us off then. So it's you'll be prompted for different options and you click simple geographic data collection, which will ask you to do a searched area with some information that's required about the area that the total area that you looked in, and then information about things that you saw or things that you didn't see. So presence record has some information there, and also not detected records. You just say, what didn't I see? So that's the gist of it. Anything you want to add?
No, sounds good. Now we can jump into what the survey looks like. I'll show you a video of that. And if it goes fast, don't worry. There are resources you can print. We made up this nice guide that has all these steps for setting up the app and for what to complete once you're out there too. So you've gotten to the field, you're going for this nice walk, and you want to tell us that you found something or didn't find something. So we're going to open up our Survey 123 app now that we have the survey installed within it. There it is, IMAP Invasive Survey 123 app, and you'll click on Collect. First, you have observer information. You'll say that you know your ID. You'll enter your ID, your name, and once you put in your ID, it'll actually give you a preview of your name to kind of confirm that you're the right person. So that's good if you're not sure of your ID. You'll put in your email address next. You don't need to put an organization ID. You can, but you'll want to put in the project ID. I didn't put it in here, but we mentioned it earlier. You'll put in the date, whether it's the date that you're out there. That's probably recommended for more accurate surveying, but you can also do it after you get home. You'll put in your state, and you can actually save all of your answers if you click in the top right, set as favorite, and then you won't have to fill out most of that stuff next time, which is great. Make it easy for you. So we'll do simple geographic data collection. And within that, the first step is searched area. So you'll click on that searched area and it'll put a pin to where you currently are, but you can change that. You can move the pin around on the app again if you're doing it from home. You'll put in under searched area attribute fields the name of your site, like what the park is named. You'll give an address if there is one, whether it's a public park, most likely is. And, different information about the impact of the species. That's kind of optional, but whatever you want to fill out, it could be helpful to us. What kind of landscape it is very useful information. If it's a forest, a wetland, that'll kind of clue us in as to it being the accurate species ID too. And under crew information, you'll put in your volunteer hours. That's very important for us to keep track. And you can put in any comments as well if you want to tell us that it's on the edge of the forest next to a tree or something like that. For presence records, you will search up your species. So right here, we're doing a fake species for testing. You can also do this for practice, or you can also practice with an absence record. So for presence records, you'll do photos of the plant if you'd like what the infestation looks like, the amount of time you spent searching, any comments about that. Definitely the number of plants found if you know that. what kind of evaluation it was. This is kind of optional. It's kind of a monitoring evaluation, and follow-up, you don't need to worry too much about it. Most likely follow-up needed. You can skip down to plant fields. You want to tell us how dense that plant is, whether the distribution is dense, a monoculture, that's the only thing you see. And percent cover, optional as well. Definitely phenology, what stage that plant is in. It's just vegetative, meaning it's just the plant. You can see leaves and whether they're seeds, fruit, anything like that. So that is the presence category. You can also add to the same survey or a different survey, not detected records. So we're putting in another sample species here, or fake species rather. You can put a photo of there not being anything there if you want. Tell us the reason for not detecting it, most likely that it's never been found there before, how long you spent searching, anything else you want us to know. And that's about that. You won't be doing treatments applied, as Abby mentioned. That's not what this volunteer program is. But you can also let us know what species you were looking for in the not detected, since you can really only put one in the not detected. But if you don't do this, if you just tell us one species in the not detected, and you're part of the invasive species spotters program and you use that project ID like we mentioned earlier, we'll kind of know and be familiar with the species you were looking for. But you can also list them out as well. So you'll click the check mark in the bottom right, and it saved your survey. You can either send it out, save it, or send it to your outbox. And then I think I click on the outbox here, and there it is. And you can click on those three dots and either edit it or submit it again, or submit it to finalize it rather. There it is, it's sent out, and that's it for a practice survey. All right. So now that you know how to fill out the survey form and what kind of plants we're looking for, we'll talk a little bit about getting ready for a survey. You'll want to pack the essentials, of course, anything you would normally do spending time outside, like bringing sunscreen, bug spray, lots of water, shoes and long socks for tick protection. And optionally, you might want to bring a boot brush to keep invasive plant seeds off your shoes so that we're not contributing to their spread. You may want our invasive ID fact sheet that we'll show you soon and the survey guide. Other field guides potentially. The iNaturalist app is great, and that could be a great way to confirm if you think you've found something, or even just learn other plants and animals along the way. It's a really fun tool as well. And feel free to bring a hiking buddy and make it even more fun. If you're not already familiar with poison ivy, here's what it looks like. Please don't touch it. Leaves of 3, let them be. It can grow low on the ground, it can grow up a tree, it can grow kind of as a bush. And you'll see these hairy roots as hairy stems as well. So stay away. And ticks you want to be mindful of. We recommend wearing long pants tucked into socks so that they, can't crawl up your leg. Lint rollers are great. If you're in a very brushy area and you think you brushed past some plants, just roll over yourself with a lint roller and you'll be surprised, maybe you pick 1 or 2 off. Check daily for ticks. You are less likely to contract any kind of illnesses from ticks if they are removed from, I believe it's under 48 hours. So definitely check often, especially spending time outdoors. Use bug spray, and optionally also permethrin may be used to treat your clothes. Do not use permethrin as a bug spray, only to treat clothing, and it makes it repellent to ticks. And respect parks and property. Of course, be respectful. Check out the rules and regulations of the parks, bodies of water, anything like that that you plan on surveying at. And definitely don't trespass. So just follow the rules, be courteous. And now for some resources to support you along your way of becoming an invasive species spotter. So this is the Invasive Species Spotters landing page at lisma.org. It's one of the tabs located on the top right. And I believe Jimena is going to put that in the chat, so you could actually click it, explore it if you'd want, or save it for later. So there's lots of information about what invasive species spotters are here, more resources available, and you can actually sign up on this little box here for our invasive species spotter specific newsletter bulletin. So we'll send that out infrequently, and it'll be updates pertaining to in-person volunteer events, virtual trainings, anything relating to the program. So if you're planning on getting involved in this project or maybe are interested in the future, definitely drop your email there so you can stay up to date. This page also has lots of information about the priority invasive species. All of these 10 species have their own info page. So if you're interested in learning more about Holly osmanthus, you can click that page. There'll be even more in-depth information about their ID features, lookalikes, even management. Maybe you have Holly osmanthus planted in your backyard and you want to get rid of it. So these are really great resources as well. We also have an interactive web map. So I'll actually open this up and show you a little bit. This is a map outlining where these 10 priority species have been already found on LISMA. Hopefully it loads. And you can filter by species. So each species of the 10 is a different color. And you can kind of expand this and hide some. So let's say we're interested in yellow garden loosestrife. I'll click on this little icon and hide the rest so we can find where the loosestrife is. So there it is in yellow, color-coded to match the flowers. And you can see where it occurs. It's just that one location on Long Island. The other dots represent other species, and you could turn that off too. So now we just have this yellow circle. That is where we'll be going on Saturday for the volunteer event. You could identify the species in person, practice using the survey with us, go for a nice walk, even get your hands dirty pulling up this plant. It'll be a lot of fun. But this map might serve as just a tool to explore and to learn about the species in that way, or maybe you even are interested in what's in your area, or you really want to hunt down some yellow garden loosestrife, so you want to see where it's present, and you notice that there's a park nearby, and you want to check out this park as an area of potentially high likelihood. So this is a starting point if you're not sure where to survey, but you don't have to follow it. You can go to any park, anywhere you're interested in exploring, and go from there. Let's see. All right, so our next resource is our species ID guide. This is our 10 species. Again, another format. You can, of course, refer to the website, but this is a great printout. You can make it double-sided and have this one pager to bring into the field with you. If you think you're pretty familiar, but you just want to be sure and you want to look at the leaf of this small carpet grass compared to an in-person leaf and see how that looks comparatively. So this is a great tool. There's some more, ID tips here. And I'd highly recommend bringing this with you out on your walks. Our next guide is the Survey 123 guide. This is everything you need to know about all those demos that we did. So it tells you how to set up the Survey 123 and how to complete the survey in the field, what app to download, how to get the form within the app, how to make an account, what fields to fill out. If it's a reminder of the project ID, tells you what you can skip, how to favorite the answers, everything like that. Oops. And looking ahead, this program will develop over time. We're planning to have volunteer appreciation events and show some support through prizes, maybe a little friendly competition, and want to celebrate our volunteers. And if you're up for a challenge and you don't think 10 species is enough for you, next year we'll be adding up to 10 more species, and we'll be doing an additional training, most likely 2 per year. And that's another challenge. You can keep adding species to your spotters list and keep looking out for some more, or stick to your 10. And we also have a feedback form, so you can let us know how you'd like to see this program grow to suit you as well. And as we mentioned, this in-person event is Saturday, July 12th, this Saturday at 10 a.m. at Quandra Hall. We will be pulling garden loosestrife, going for a little nature walk, doing a demo of Survey 123. We're happy to answer any questions, help you set it up if you're having any trouble. You can even practice filling it out. And we'll be pulling the loosestrife as well. So you can register by scanning this code. It'll be a lot of fun. So thank you so much. If you want to get set up, there's some more of these QR codes here if you want to refer to that. And we're happy to answer any questions either now or by email. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ladies. That was so good. All right, everyone. So like I said, please feel free to drop if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat or in the Q&A box, and I'll be happy to read them out. In the meantime, I have some questions. So just that was a lot of great information. So just to make sure that I understood, so those field guides that you just talked about are all in the Invasive Species Spotters webpage, correct?
Yes.
Okay, great. And then is there a particular time frame during which you want people to head out and monitor?
Yeah, so it's not exactly like a BioBlitz. You're welcome to do this anytime, most likely during the growing season, because these would be pretty hard to identify once fall and winter take root. So, have fun throughout the summer, and you're welcome to start it up again in the spring next year.
Okay, great. And oh, so to recap, um, you do not need a GIS account to use the app, but you do need an IMAP invasives account. Is that right?
Yes. Yep, and it's free to make an IMAP Invasives account. Anybody can do it. And then you'll just save your information. And once you save it in the survey, you won't really have to worry about it much anymore.
Okay, great. That's good to know. So they don't have to worry about always doing it. That's great.
Mhm.
What about so I'm a big hiker, and I know you mentioned, the boot brush and whatnot. Are there any other best practices that, we could keep in mind to avoid spreading invasives when hiking and out in the field?
Yeah, hiking, the main thing I think is going to be the boot brushing. You'll want to do that before and after you go for a walk or a hike. If you don't have a boot brush, we give them away at events sometimes lately. But you can also order them online or even use an old toothbrush or like a brush from the dollar store or something like that. So that's great. And if you're into kayaking or boating, anything like that, however you really spend time outside, there's most likely going to be a corresponding way for you to get involved and prevent invasive species. So if you kayak, for example, we also practice clean, drain, dry. And that will be where you rinse down your boat, you'll wipe it down, and then you'll leave it out to dry before heading to your next pond or lake or wherever you're heading. Abby, do you have anything to add for prevention?
I think that's great. I think you also mentioned in the presentation, don't move firewood. So that's actually a law, believe it or not. I think it's about not spreading it 50 miles or 100 miles. And basically, that is the length of Long Island. So you can't bring your firewood, unfortunately, from Queens to Montauk. Buy it locally if you're going to use it. A lot of campsites have it. And that's to prevent the spread of forest pests. So we don't mention any forest pests in this presentation, but just something to be mindful of.
Yeah, that's good to know. And then I think my last question is I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about the Prism network. So how do you guys work with other groups working on invasive species in other regions?
That's a great question. Yeah, it's a pretty cool model though. So as LISMA, we connect local organizations and learn from them, keep everybody on the same page and work with local partners like you guys. But we're also connected to other organizations across the state through the PRISM. So there's actually statewide monthly PRISM calls that I think are open to the public, where they have presentations about invasive species. So that's one way that we're always in communication with each other. If you're really into invasive species, also there is a statewide invasive species expo that's happening in September, and that would be a great way to also be meeting people from all over the state interested in invasive species. I don't have the dates off the top of my head, but I know it's in September. And again, it's a great communication resource, learning about what other parts of New York State, the problems they might be facing. Often, actually, in Lismo, we get these species first, so we're telling them, watch out for this. And so it's a good use of communication, sharing knowledge.
Right? Maybe we can share like if there's a registration link or something when we send out an email after the webinar.
Sure.
All right, folks. So, oh, there you go. Sally popped it in the chat. If there's anybody interested in the Invasive Species Expo, you can find that link there. So I'm not seeing any questions. So I think I'm going to wrap up and we can all have some minutes back on our day. Why not? I'm going to just pop in the chat real quick. LISMA's webpage, you can find it there by visiting lisma.org. You can find more information. You can also find the recording for this webinar and our past and future ones on the Community Science Long Island webpage. And again, I keep sharing, but please join us on Saturday. It's going to be a great event, and the registration link is there on the chat. In our next webinar, and our final webinar of the Community Science Long Island series is going to be on the Long Island Coastal BioBlitz that we'll be hosting in August. That webinar is August 7th at 6. And you can also find the registration link in the Community Science Long Island website. So with that, thanks so much, everybody, for joining. Thanks so much to our awesome panelists for today's info. That was a wealth of knowledge we just received. And if anybody has questions, you've got our links, and we'll be emailing you soon. So thanks so much to everybody. Have a great night.